So the first question I have for you is how and where did you find wrestling, and in what way would you say it's impacted your life?
Well, I came into wrestling a little bit later. I didn't start wrestling until the eighth grade. And what happened was we had a high school team. I didn't even know that wrestling was a sport. And went to Murray County Junior High. They called every boy in the school to the gym and told us they were going to start a wrestling team.
Mhm.
They felt like they were at a disadvantage at the high school and they would improve if they had a middle school team. So I came out for wrestling that year and really didn't have a whole lot of success. And so my freshman year, I was thinking, I don't know if this is really for me.
Mhm.
And one of our football coaches was also the wrestling coach. And one day after practice, my freshman year, he said, Thornbury, you wrestle. And I said, no, coach, I don't think I'm going to wrestle this year. And he said, that wasn't a question, boy. So I remember going to the locker room thinking, well, I guess I'm going to be wrestling this year. But best decision of my life. Uh, Wrestling is it's been a part of. It's just me, when I was in high school and when I was in college, I was a wrestler. That was it. You knew me. Hey, that guy's a wrestler. That's just who I was.
Right. No, I think it's definitely a sport that, um, and I feel like I'll always say this about the sport, but it's a sport that really sticks with you, and it's a sport that shapes who you are, especially down the road, and the more you get involved with it. So it really is a sport that I believe does not leave your life in a sense. There's always something that correlates back to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And just you know, working hard, having a good work ethic, being a good teammate, being a good family member, all those things are just right in line to the core values you got to have to be successful in wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always, going the step ahead and doing the little things that count to make those successes, possible and make it happen.
Yeah, and getting better every day. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not coaching wrestling and I'm not wrestling, but I like to think I try to get better every day. I'm
Right.
55. I hope I'm a better person tomorrow. I hope I'm a better person when I'm 56.
Oh yeah, no, it's always the mentality of doing something to improve that I think really sticks with you through, the rest of your life. And that comes from wrestling. So after finishing out your high school career, you wrestled for the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. How did you hear about UTC, and what made you pick them as the place where you wanted to continue your academic and athletic career?
Well, my sophomore year, I was fortunate enough to finish second in the state tournament. And I remember when I got back, one of my buddies said, "Hey, man, this is great. You're a sophomore, and you keep getting better. Maybe you could wrestle in college." And that was the first point in time that I even knew that wrestling was a college sport.
Mhm.
I had no idea. So I started exploring college wrestling and looking into college wrestling. But I also played football. I went on a recruiting trip for football to Clemson University. And the guy that kind of had me hooked up with Clemson University hooked me. He knew I was big into wrestling. So he took me to a Clemson dual meet wrestling tournament. I
Mhm.
believe they called it the Tiger 8 back then. And it was pretty cool because I got to see Charlie Hurd wrestle for UTC, and
Oh,
he was
really?
pretty impressive. But I was in high school. I got to watch that whole tournament. And during that tournament, he introduced me to the head wrestling coach, who was Eddie Griffin, and the assistant wrestling coach, who was Ethan Reeve.
Hmm.
So that was the first time I got to meet Coach Reeve. Whenever that was my junior year, my senior year, I went to the Clemson wrestling camp, and Coach Reeve was working that camp. And so he was running the camp. I got a feel for how he coached, what he expected, and he was like, "Hey, I just got the job at UTC, and we're interested in you." So that's how UTC got on my radar, and At the time, there was a guy named Bud Henneball who was the graduate assistant, and he stayed in contact with me and really built a relationship with me. And that's why I chose UTC over the other schools. That's why I chose UTC wrestling over football.
And you mentioned Bud Hiddenball, which is I've had the opportunity to talk with him, and he really is one of the I would say one of the most legendary figures, especially for Southeast wrestling as a whole, and especially I think just for collegiate wrestling in general. And his involvement with UTC, I think, really helped that program a great deal at the time in the '80s. When they were switching over to D1 and beginning to make strides there.
Yeah, Bud. Bud was he was great. My senior year in football, we made it to the state semifinals, and we played Marist School out of Atlanta
Mhm.
down at Marist. And I'd met Bud, we'd talked on the phone, that kind of thing, and we played a good game, but we lost, come up a little bit short. And I remember walking off the football field thinking, "Hey, this could be the last time I play football." And Bud is standing there at the fence. And he said, "Hey, man, I just wanted to come watch you play. We're excited about you this wrestling season and coming to UTC." That was just the kind of guy he was. He stayed in touch. He made sure that I knew what was going on with the team, how I could fit in with the team, and he was crucial in doing it. And since he's not at UTC and I'm not at UTC, he's still just a great friend and a great guy. Bud is all about family and wrestling, and that's about it.
Mhm. No, he's definitely a stand-up guy, and even after his time at UTC, he still does today to continue to help out a great deal with wrestling and wrestling in Georgia, and whether it be the NCAA's or Georgia high school wrestling, he's always involved. Now, when you made the move up to UTC, what was it like adapting to that college wrestling room and that lifestyle of wrestling?
Well, just in high school, it was easy for me,
Mhm.
and you know, had a lot of success in high school. So, and I'd wrestled in open tournaments, freestyle, this kind of thing. But I can remember it had to have been a month or 2 months of practice before I even got a takedown.
Right.
I mean, when we would go live, I would just get killed. And for me, it was, you know, you had to make that decision. And I can remember laying in my dorm room thinking, I suck. I'm horrible. And that's not what I wanted. And so you had to change some things, maybe start running in the mornings, maybe do a little more conditioning, maybe get you a better workout partner, all those things. And speaking of workout partners, that really helped too. Sometime during that year, my guy named Charlie Buckshaw, we
Hmm.
became workout partners, and we worked out with each other and every day for the rest of my deal. And Charlie, like everybody else in the room, he made me better. I like to think I made him better. We had some really good big guys, and you had to really work. But Coach Reed built a culture. There was a culture we had where you worked hard. I mean, not working hard was that was shameful. That was disgraceful. And simply getting yourself better, that wasn't good enough either. You had to get your teammates better. I mean, that was your responsibility. And if a guy was not feeling good or he was kind of sick or he had a little nagging injury, you didn't take it easy on him. That's when you poured it on him. You made sure, because there was going to be a day he's going to be in a match and he's not going to feel good. And how's he going to respond?
Right.
And that was another thing. Taking it easy on your partner, cutting corners, that was shameful. That was not acceptable.
Now, in that room when you first arrived, obviously there was a lot of very elite guys. You had, like you mentioned, Charlie Buckshaw. You had Jeff Ruffalo. You had, I believe, Billy Moss. Still there at the time.
Willie was already gone.
Oh, okay. He had left by then.
but we had another guy named Mike Wallace, and he
Mhm.
was a Fargo freestyle national champion. I remember my freshman year, I probably would not have started except for Jeff Ruffalo got injured in one of the first dual meets up at Penn State. I think he broke his ankle, but he redshirted that year.
Mhm.
So uh, I, I wrestled 190 that year, and I was conference champion. Well, Mike was a conference champion at heavyweight. Charlie was a conference champion at 177. The next year, you got 4 returning conference champions and 3
Right.
weight classes.
Now, overall in college, what were your main goals while wrestling at UTC?
Well, the main goal I come up short. I wanted to be an All American
Hmm.
and wanted to be a 4-time conference champion. So neither one of those things came true, but I wouldn't trade my experience for anything. Just the relationships, my teammates. Even today, these are guys that I may not talk to them 5, 6, 7 years, but when you run into them, it's like you were living together yesterday.
Right.
And so I feel like I accomplished some things, but ultimately, you're not a national champion, you're not an All-American. That's really what you're going for.
Hmm. Right. No, I think when everyone goes to wrestling college, and I think one big separation from high school competition to college competition is just the intensity level goes up, and a lot of people's goals are fixated on being an All-American, making it to the national finals, being a national champion. But those things like multi-time SoCon champions, that puts in an elite class. Um, I don't know if you saw, but going through, I posted a picture on the UTC alumni page, and it was of several of the multi-time SoCon champions, and there was Charlie Buckshaw, Tom Sell, I believe Ben Reichel, and a couple others in that picture. And I think that just really shows that elite group that was in there at the time, along with many others who contributed to UTC's status.
Yeah, we were extremely lucky, but we had a lot of help and we had a lot of support. The guys that wrestled in the 70s, they were a pretty special group,
Mhm.
and they were D2, and they were dominant in D2, and those guys were tough as nails, and they were around. I mean, they were supportive of us, and not just I'm not talking like they just came to the matches. I mean, you knew who they were. If you needed help, they would help you, and they were there. They were working in the concession stands, raising money, and all these kind of things. And so, you know, once I did find out what wrestling was, I knew who Turner Jackson was pretty quick because
Right.
he coached in North Georgia before Bradley Central. So, uh, just having guys like that around, and something about that. But you know, I I can't name them all. All those guys: John Noblet, David Noblet, Bill Burnside, Mike Kraft, and just go on and on and on. Just we had a lot of support from them, and they were the original old timers.
Right. I guess you could say, well, I guess it really was a case of iron sharpens iron in a way, both from that group in the 70s and that current group that was in the lineup and in the room at the time.
Yeah, I I actually had a little bit of a tie to those guys. Whenever I decided I was going to UTC, there was a guy from Dalton. Somebody told me he wanted to meet me. And so his name was Bobby Orand. And
Mhm.
Bobby was a 3-time Southern Conference champion for UTC back in the 70s. And he wrestled all those guys. And he was like, hey, do you mind if come over, we could work out or whatever? And I'm like, are you kidding me? So, I got to wrestle with him and I already knew stories about those guys. And so the program for me was a little bit legendary, but being close and being from the area, I had a few connections.
Right. And I think taking advantage of those connections, always help down the road because it's one of a kind connections that have a lot of benefits tied to them.
No doubt.
Now, going into your senior year, And during your senior year, you're ranked top 10 in the country at heavyweight, and you racked up 38 wins, which actually I believe still stands as the second most in-season wins for a UTC wrestler. What was your mindset and what was your mindset? What were your goals for that senior year?
Well, I my junior year certainly didn't turn out like I wanted it to, and I ended up getting a really bad staph infection and had to have surgery. And still tried to wrestle in the conference, and didn't work out. And just I appreciated the opportunity my senior year because I I knew in a minute it could be over. So I think that that injury, in a sense, helped me in my senior year.
Mhm.
Plus, it kind of it calmed me down. I didn't get nervous. I was just excited about the opportunity. I was getting to compete, and so that was the mindset going into that year. And also, I knew I was going to go into coaching. So anytime there was a down moment or any doubt, I always told myself, "Hey, you're going to be asking your kids to do these things. You got to be doing these things. You got to be on top of it." And that was kind of the mindset, and just finishing out strong, and appreciating the opportunity that I had.
Now, you obviously finished out your college career, 4 year starter, 3 time SoCon champion, 3 time NCAA qualifier. Definitely one of the best come out of UTC. What are some of your takeaways from collegiate wrestling?
Oh wow, it it's a great sport. It's a great sport, and I enjoy watching it, and I loved coaching it. I love competing, but collegiate wrestling is just special because you've got you've got people that are working their tails off and doing all the right things, and they're competing against people who are doing the exact same thing, and both of them are trying to outdo the other one. And it's exciting, and a lot of people get too wrapped up into the individual thing. It's a team
Right.
sport. You've got a team, you've got a village around you, you've got a lot of support, and you've got a lot of help, and you're just learning life lessons. Wrestling can be cruel.
Mhm.
You can be on top of the world, and you can be knocked down real quick. And life's like that too. It's an emotional roller coaster, and you got to be prepared for it.
Well, I think you mentioned the adversity that the sport brings, and I think that's something that's so crucial in the sport, and I think that's why it's such a beneficial sport because, especially for a lot of young athletes, it exposes them to adversity uh, almost every weekend. Like I said, it could be you could do well in a dual meet on a Tuesday, not do well in a tournament on a Saturday, and then you got to go back and you got to figure it out and problem solve in a way that benefits both you and your team.
Yeah, but it's a sport that you can make it as difficult and as complex as you want to,
Mhm.
but it's pretty simple. You can outwork people, and you get out of it what you put into it. And you'll see people that aren't as athletic, and they'll dominate people that are athletic simply because they work harder, they train, they eat right, they do the right things. And it's just that's the beautiful thing to me is the work you put in, you see the results. You can see the results pretty quickly. And I don't know because I never got as intensely involved in other sports, but the other sports I participated in were they were good, but it just wasn't the same.
Right. No, I think the sport is, and like you said, credit to other sports, but the sport is really one of a kind, and it truly takes a certain mindset that is also built upon when you compete in the sport. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a respect. There's a respect amongst wrestlers. And if you know a guy wrestle, you don't even know him, but you know he wrestled. There's a little bit of respect there because you know how he
Mhm.
trains, you know what he does. And for some reason, it makes me think about girls wrestling and the way girls wrestling is developing now. You know, way back when I was first coaching in the '90s, there was a time or two when there was a couple of girls wanted to wrestle, and they weren't serious about it. They were doing it for
Right.
attention or whatever. So my take on girls wrestling was, I don't know about this stuff, man. But then I went to a camp. I was working a camp in Knoxville, and there was a girl at the camp. And I got to talking to her because, I mean, she worked hard. She asked questions. She took notes. She was interested. And she didn't even wrestle. She was there because she was a judo person and she wanted to get better at judo. And then, you start seeing these girls and they train and they work hard. And I think that's one reason that girls wrestling is taking off right now because it's a simple respect. And, you respect that wrestler. It's a girl, but she's wrestler. She works
Mhm.
hard. She's training hard. She does the same things. And that it's just a respect amongst us. It's almost, it's a family.
Mhm. No, I mention often that even in school, and whether it be middle school, high school, college, if you're in the hallway and you're passing your teammate, there's a different type of bond there than you would have towards your other friends who aren't involved with wrestling. And I think because it correlates those times where you've been with your teammate or your practice partner during some of the times where you've had to go the hardest and figure stuff out. And I think you can look back on that and think those are some of the most productive times of your life when you have to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the best way to bring a group of people together is for them to suffer together.
Mhm.
So, and when you wrestle, there's going to be some suffering. And I guarantee you, if you wrestle for Coach Reeve at UTC, there are some days where there was some suffering, and you're just going to have to be able to deal with that.
Right. Because I had the opportunity to have him on the podcast. I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about how his coaching style was and the hard work that goes into it. And it kind of correlated back that you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
I when I coached at Murray County, I started out. I had my system, and my system was very, very close to Coach Reeves. We had things we did Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We were going to lift, and
Hmm.
we had what we did, and the goal was to get better every day, get better every day, in small steps. And that idea of doing something for 2 minutes every day is a whole lot better than doing something for 45 minutes one time.
Right.
And we took that approach and also copied from him. We would we would try to get all our teaching in before Christmas,
Hmm.
and practices would be long. I mean, 3 hours long, over 3 hours, trying to get all that teaching and learning in. But then after Christmas, the teaching and learning was not there, and it was drilling, but it was high speed drilling. The
Hmm.
goal was if somebody walked in the room, they'd think we were wrestling live. They didn't know we were drilling. But now then practice is only about an hour and a half, 2 hours long. And we he we got better every day, but we had a plan to peak. And I kind of copied that plan, and it worked well for us.
No, I agree with that system there because that's the same system that I've been exposed to through high school wrestling. And it really does, when you break it down, it allows you to peak around January or February. Um, when in turn the entire season is important, but when you're going into those state duels, the postseason, the state tournament, it really allows you to be ahead of the game in that regard.
Oh yeah, and as far as the individual tournament goes, you only got to be your best one weekend,
Hmm.
and that's the weekend you better be your best.
Right. No, it all boils down to that. All the work through November, December, all the way up to that. That's the that's time to really lay it all on the line and put it forward. But what made you want to circle back around after finishing wrestling at UTC and get involved in coaching?
Well, to be honest with you, I couldn't see my life without having wrestling in it, and I always wanted to coach. and had a couple of opportunities. And then I came back near my hometown and was an assistant coach at Northwest Whitfield. And we finished as state runner-ups that year. And then the next year, I believe it was the 92-93 school year, I got the head coaching job at Murray County High School, which happened to be the high school I went to.
Mhm.
And I was there for probably about 25 years before I got out. So for me, it was really special because a lot of times if you go back home, it doesn't work out. And I
Mhm.
knew that. So I knew I was taking a big risk. But it did work out, and it was kind of neat because I knew those kids. They went hunting the same place I hunted. They went fishing the same places I fished when I was a kid. They're sitting in the same seats in that school that I sat in when I was a kid. So I think that gave me an advantage to relate to them. But just to answer your question, I just never. I had to be involved with wrestling. That
Right.
had to be a part of what I was doing.
Right. No, and I think that correlates to, what we mentioned earlier about how it really doesn't leave your life for all the good reasons too.
No doubt.
And, you know, coaching, I feel like provides so many great opportunities past the, being wrestling on the mat. It provides the opportunity to have so many more connections and build so many more bonds through the sport. And those are all the more valuable in my opinion.
Yeah, I coached long enough where in the beginning I would I would just get so engulfed and so concerned about every situation that a lot of times I didn't just watch my guys compete and enjoy them competing, but at the end I would when I had a guy who was special or really good, I would try to not put my emotions or my nerves on them, and I would just enjoy watching them compete and enjoy seeing their hard work pay off. That was very it was very beneficial for me.
Right. And, that's just, I think it goes back to one of the glories of the sport is seeing all that pay off in those regards. Well, thank you for joining me. It's been awesome to get to interview you and have you on the podcast, and hope to have you back on at some point again.
All right. Thank you so much. And it was nice talking to you. Wish you the best of luck.
Appreciate it, and likewise, take care.
All right. Thanks.
No problem.